All right. And everyone should be excited because Web3 is about to play a much, much bigger role in our daily lives. And with this in mind, you'll be wondering if Hong Kong, if we could become the next global Web3 hub. Well, that's a good question, isn't it? This is a thought-provoking question, and everybody in the audience, please do direct your attention as we have a QR code for you if you would like to submit any questions during our discussions. Now, without further ado, everyone, let's greet our next set of panels of speakers who will provide us with insightful sharings and their insights. They include Mr. Erich Wong, Head of Growth, Hong Kong, the Sandbox. Please join us on stage. Ms. Lucy Gazmararian, Founder and Managing Partner of Token Bay Capital. Please join us and make yourselves comfortable on stage. Mr. Sean Lee, Senior Advisor, Crypto Council for Innovation, Co-Founder of Odyssey Network. And everyone, also, please do welcome Miss Rachel Lee. She's the Senior Manager of Fintech from Cyberport to become our speaker for this session. Thank you so much for moderating. I will hand it over to you, Rachel. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for joining. And we have three really exciting speakers here. And I wanted to maybe start off with one very simple question. So there were a lot of exciting news announced by the Hong Kong government and regulators in the virtual asset space during Hong Kong Fintech Week 2 weeks ago. Could you share any similar efforts seen in other cities globally, and which jurisdictions are most well-positioned to be the next Web3 hub? Maybe shall we start with Lucy? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So thank you for any diehard people that are still here and listening to us. I'm enjoying being by the harbour. It's pretty gorgeous. Yeah, so I think, listen, Hong Kong's been on a long journey now of coming out with regulation for virtual assets, which has now morphed into something that we term Web3. From as far back as 2018. So pretty much every year they're looking to build on regulations, and as the technology advances, they are also looking to sort of keep up to date as much as they can with regulatory frameworks to support the industry. So it's been happening since 2018, but I think now fast forward to 2023, it's really picking up steam. And now at Hong Kong Fintech Week, rather than one sort of announcement about crypto, we get 4 or 5 different announcements, right? It's just like a slew of announcements and support for the industry. And, keen to hear what the other panelists say, but I think a focus this year was very much on security tokens and, tokenizing capital markets. And that really being what's going to sort of take us from, a few hundred million users of blockchains and holders of crypto to the trillions and billions. So it was very focused on security tokens and tokenizing funds and having access to ETFs, which are already regulated investment vehicles. And a path to allowing retail more and more participation and interaction with this technology. And so I think net, it was another bumper year for Hong Kong and the regulations and announcements. I don't know whether it beats last year. Last year was really exciting because you had every leader of Hong Kong on stage at Hong Kong Fintech Week saying, we are going to become a Web3 hub. And I think that took many of us who've been working in the industry by surprise, and it was such a welcome surprise. So that's my take. I think, we continue to march onwards, and versus other regulations around the world, we're definitely one of the top hubs, because you can't just have the innovators, you can't just have the startups, you also need that regulatory top-down support, and that's what we're getting, along with jurisdictions like Singapore, certainly jurisdictions in the Middle East, including Abu Dhabi and Dubai. But let's not forget, Europe has also announced regulation. Europe's got a population of 450 million people, and if you get a license in one jurisdiction, you're going to passport across 27 EU states. So don't discount Europe. Once that starts to catch on, that's going to be pretty invincible. And then obviously the US has the most to lose, so they are lagging. and I'll pass it over to my panelists for their thoughts on the regulatory landscape.
Maybe let's not talk about the US because it gets pretty depressing these days in the Web3 space. But the fact that Hong Kong, this is now the second year in which we are not only not losing momentum, but actually accelerating towards a lot of the activities that the government says they're going to do, the regulator says that they're going to do, and the large innovators and the ecosystems are continuing to build. I think that part has been very favorable. I think from my part, what I was particularly pleased to see in terms of Hong Kong is developers coming to Hong Kong, right? I think we've all known that Hong Kong has been a financial hub, very focused on kind of banking and capital markets. Developer talent has always been somewhat lacking for the last probably 2-3 decades. But the fact that many of the Web3 developers, protocol owners, founders are coming to Hong Kong, some of them are actually relocating to Hong Kong. That to me is a clear sign that they not only see that Asia is the place to be in terms of expanding their footprint, but also choosing Hong Kong to be a base of operations for either fundraising or continue to build or continue to work with the government. That to me is the next step in terms of what Hong Kong have done. So within the last 12 months, I think we've really gone very, very far. I think 2 years ago, we would never thought we'll be hosting something like this, in TST, talking about Web3, but I think we'll be pulled off the stage. But I think right now the environments have been very different.
Yeah, I would like to share something about actually what we are doing in Sandbox actually, because it's quite special because we have got like 70 partners in local Hong Kong. They come from like banking, F&B, transportations, so everything almost they really get into this Web3 area. So this is helping us to build the metaverse as well. So just recently to share, this year, August, actually we have the very first Web3 campaign with Hong Kong McDonald's. So this is their very first campaign that housing in Hong Kong, but not the other regions. So this gives us a very big support for how we are gonna build this ecosystem in especially Hong Kong area. So at the same time, we are not just getting support from the corporate, but also with educations. So there's quite a lot of educations such as like Hong Kong UST and Hong Kong DI. They used to get their very first digital assets and then to showcasing the students' creations upcoming for their graduations projects, and also they are looking forward to build quite a lot of content into it. So I think every use case has tried to prove that local Hong Kong is really ready to get more into this area.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone. And also for traditional industries in Hong Kong, especially the financial industry, to adopt Web3, what are the biggest challenges and opportunities you see in the next 2 years? Maybe we start with Xian.
So the traditional industry, I think, is starting to really pick it up, right? Especially given the fact that we are a financial services hub. So you have been seeing, for example, I think it was last week, that HSBC is now getting into the game. They are now offering digital asset custody. They're going to be tokenizing a physical gold product. You have companies like UBS working with Bank of China International earlier this year and tokenizing debt securities and on public networks. So I think these are examples of the traditional companies that are bridging between kind of using Web3 technology, but mapping on top of that the existing products and services that they're already offering into the market. So I think we're only going to see more of that. What I would like to see, this is my own personal view, is that if the Hong Kong government ever offers another tokenized bond product like they did earlier this year, they would consider launching it on public networks, right? Really coming into the ethos of Web3, making it more transportable, making it more cross-border based, and making it most importantly, more inclusive, that anyone can be able to participate in there through the way of how they tokenize these products. So I think the enterprises are getting into the game. The gap obviously is a lot of the business model within Web3 is quite different than traditional and Web2. So that takes a little bit of time to kind of bring between the economic value on both sides. and also talent, right? I think you know, a Web3 developer is not exactly the same as your Web2, Web1 developer, so there is some bit of a transition period, but it can be done. I have no doubt that it can be done.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the sharing. And how about Lucy? Could you share your insights?
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the big sticking points for institutions is really having to go against the grain of their DNA, which is to be a siloed, centralized intermediary that keeps their, you know, cards very close to their chest and doesn't share technology, doesn't share proprietary data, obviously very strict privacy rules. And it's sort of getting their head around moving from internal operating systems to shared infrastructure of blockchains that are not just shared with other institutions, but actually the entire world can access Ethereum and other public blockchains. And sort of getting comfortable that actually trading activity, the issuance, the trading, the settling of securities and other assets is moving onto public blockchains. And how are they going to uphold all the regulatory requirements that they're so used to building their business around when now you've got blockchains which are a public good, shared infrastructure, maintained 24/7 by global developers around the world, who knows where and who knows who they are. So it's really quite a fundamental shift in the way that institutions are looking to sort of operate. And that seismic shift is going to take time. But the amazing thing is having been in the space since 2018, the conversation from banks and institutions was like, no public blockchains, never going to happen, no tokens, no Ethereum. We'll do our private blockchain. So, you know, the whole intranet versus internet argument where they're like, no, but what's the point of having a private blockchain? Then you have to worry about the corporate governance of who's going to do what on this private blockchain. So you end up going round in circles. You know, the real change comes with embracing public blockchains. And the extraordinary thing is they are now starting to see the light, right? They are starting, as Sean said, they're issuing bonds on Ethereum. And not only are they embracing this public blockchain, but they're also open to how technology is developing around this to ensure that there's privacy and security and all these bells and whistles, which actually can be built into the architecture and the different layers of the blockchain ecosystem. So I think we're at this point where we're just about to open up to have institutions, individuals, you know, this idea of things being borderless is really going to start taking off. And I think that's when we're going to get the real impact of how blockchains can change the functioning of global financial markets and how anything can become tradable and start moving around the world. So institutions, I think, have surprised us. I mean, HSBC as a mover in the blockchain space, guys,
Unthinkable, right?
This is
Unthinkable.
massive, and it's happened, actually, relatively speaking, quite fast.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I would like to build on what Lucy has been saying about being using public blockchain and permissionless network versus some sort of private blockchain. But the other trend that we also see is that with increasing regulatory and privacy and other considerations, there are also different camps of blockchain infrastructure. So apart from the tools that we sort of talked about, there are also some open network with permissioned sort of layer or more of a privacy sort of solution built on top of it, or being native in the network. So any thoughts on your direction that you think the future will take us to, in terms of the structure of how these blockchain will be structured? Thanks.
Actually, let me focus to talk about Sandbox, what we are doing. Actually, we are talking about open metaverse. Is we allow everyone to create something, to empower the creator, to make sure their creations, their ownership belongs to them, but not belongs to Sandbox. Yeah. It's quite differences. Why we are building up something related for education, because we really need to have more creator to join into this ecosystem, and then they get start to develop their own business, and then they can contribute into this Web3 area as well. So what we have to do is we try to make sure that everything they created was on chain. So everything is chaseable, and then they can make sure they can how to manage their own creations by the platform or by the service we provided. But at the same time, we also provide all the tools for them to get started with their own development. So actually, there's so many, like I would like to say, there's some primary school in local Hong Kong. They already get started to educate the youngest children to understand what is the concept about digital ownership. So they understand that when they play game, they kind of contributing into the creations. They can also, at the same time, they get started to understand what is the regulation, what is the ownership inside their mind. So this is what we are trying to do at the moment.
Thank you. Thanks, Erich. How about Sian?
Maybe I'll cover it from the regulatory side. I think the regulators are getting educated very, very quickly. And a lot of the notion of whether it's a public network, private network, a lot of those are becoming conversations that they're getting educated on and also having an opinion upon. So I think from that perspective, the notion of having a public network with assets that are sitting on top, very soon that's not going to be really a question that they're going to ask anymore. What they're going to ask, however, is going to be more around measures on KYC, AML, illicit finance, considerations, and then also they're going to ask questions about liability, right? So who actually owns the piece of asset, and who actually have the liability in terms of owning it or custodying it? What network it's actually running on top, that becomes less of an issue, especially as they continue to get more educated in this space. So I think that question is going to slowly go away, and it's going to go more towards, well, whether it's asset, whether it's physical or digital, the fundamental questions still need to be asked. Who owns it? Who can do what with it? And who are you really that actually own it? These are all fundamental questions that need to be there anyways. And yes, there are different tools in Web3 that can potentially mitigate a lot of the risk in that regard, but I think all of those will go away pretty soon.
Sure. Thanks. How about Lucy? Any thoughts on this?
I think we pretty much covered that in the last question. I feel like we're about to be judged. I'm pretty sure. So they're going to start holding up numbers of how good our panel is. I'm not sure what's going on.
Thank you. And so as Web3 attracts more talents, and some are relocating due to like various reasons, and like Web3 talents are pretty fluid anyway. So do you think Hong Kong like stands out as a destination for these professionals or innovators? Shall we start with Erich?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. As mentioned, we tried so hard to develop from the youngest children. So I think they will be, actually they are the digital native users coming up. So everything, they will be really, really familiar with that. And then I don't have to spend too much into this area anymore, because they will automatically generate a lot of content to contribute into this area. So this is what we are trying to build at the moment. So definitely, I think Hong Kong will be very powerful in this area in the future.
Thank you.
I mean, education takes a long time. I think we really haven't had that technology-centric mentality from a curriculum perspective that's been over the last 20 years or so. So I'm very pleased to see that pretty much every university in Hong Kong now have either fintech programs or actually very specifically into blockchain and digital assets. These are very favorable to see, because as you continue to educate them from the fundamental pillars, they will continue to start to think about what business models potentially they can get into. So I think that's very good. I actually co-founded a company a few years ago in Cyberport that actually focus on blockchain education for high school students, right? To get them actually started even earlier than that, right? Just try different things out. What does it mean by building and launching a token on a blockchain, and what does an NFT really do? And it's not just some JPEG. What does it actually do? So the more we do that, and the more students we're able to cover, I think the more we're going to be able to do that. And the fact that now the borders are open, we have much more talents coming in from mainland China, from Southeast Asia. Many of them have, especially the last few weeks, have been here in Hong Kong. They can see the vibrancy of what's happening here. They can see the government's intention and aspiration of making this a Web3 hub. That is becoming very attractive. So as long as we're able to give them a favorable environment to set up companies, to get the visa, and to get fundraising in a relatively seamless way, I think that more people are definitely going to come.
Thank you. Thanks. How about Lucy? Anything?
Yeah, I think the point with mainland China, I mean, China was kind of the OG crypto hub of the world, right? They drove this technology really into mainstream consciousness. When Bitcoin hit 20K in 2017, that was China, right? So China is an early adopter of the technology. Chinese population, developers, talent when it comes to Web3 is probably some of the best in the world. And the fact that they have not been able to launch startups, trade crypto or invest in crypto, certainly in the last 2 years, but it's been a gray area for much longer than that, is really sort of suppressing enormous potential. And I was just at the Binance conference in Istanbul last week, and there was a KOL, a young mainland Chinese influencer in crypto. And she was talking to some Russian KOLs, and they were like, how's China? And she's like, listen, we're all still trading this stuff. We love it. And I overheard her saying, we're very excited Hong Kong is now embracing it, because for those developers, for those teams that want to explore and build, they now have somewhere in China they can go to do that and get support. So I think that trend is not to be underestimated. I don't think we've seen that fully materialize yet, but I think we can expect over the next few years that's really going to define Hong Kong. And I think that's going to be an incredible boost for Hong Kong, but also for the broader development and build out of the Web3 industry.
I continue to tell my friends in the US, especially ones that are considering leaving because of the regulatory environments, that Hong Kong is the regulatory sandbox for China, right? So you have the talent, you have the projects, but you can launch a token in China, well, you come to Hong Kong. We've got the robust regulatory regime now with retail access, right? So that opens a lot of doors and a lot more applications that people can actually really think about building here.
Yeah, actually, to share more, actually we also got quite a lot of creators in mainland China. They already get started to doing something in not just only in creation, but also in education as well. So I think they are really, really familiar with this area. And then if they're facing any problems, so definitely they will come to Hong Kong and then to get some solutions.
Thank you so much for the insightful sharing. I think we have quite a clear sort of answer to our topic, could Hong Kong be the next global Web3 hub by now. But any final thoughts on what has to be further enhanced for Hong Kong in order for this to be realized in the foreseeable future? Maybe we start with Lucy. Thanks.
I think, we're in that period of time where there's been amazing announcements, starting with Hong Kong Fintech Week last year. And now everyone's going, okay, Hong Kong has made all these announcements. They've got all this political support. What's the progress? What's happening? How many licenses have been issued? How many crypto businesses around the world are applying for the license? They're looking for those metrics and KPIs to see actually whether a shift in the regulatory framework is leading to a boost in the industry. And what I say to anyone that says, well, have we really seen it pick up? My answer is we're still only a few months in. The regime for crypto exchanges, for virtual asset trading platforms that was announced by the SFC only came into effect on the 1st of June this year. So, if we're looking at Web3 as a multi-decade trend, we're really in the first innings. And I think we're actually very early to provide a framework, and there is going to be a slight lag. So I'm hoping to see more and more. I think there is good traction already, but I think a lot of discussions are being had internally in crypto businesses around the world about that sort of Asia piece of their business and whether Hong Kong is going to be the jurisdiction or is it going to be Singapore. And I think those conversations are still being had, and hopefully Hong Kong is going to win the race on that. And I think, the edge that Hong Kong has is just the unified political support. It's coming from every angle, right, saying that this is something that we wholeheartedly support. So I think, what can we do more of? I think do more of the same. Continue to have very positive messages, and then the talent should follow, the businesses should follow. And we should get a really exciting trading activity. And I'll tell you what's really going to help test Hong Kong's embracing of Web3 is the next crypto bull market, which is probably just around the corner. And the fact that Hong Kong has set itself up to allow retail to access Bitcoin is really ahead of the curve. And when the market starts going up and everyone that you walk along the street is talking about the price of Bitcoin, the fact that in Hong Kong you can access it in a safe, compliant, and legal manner is really going to set Hong Kong apart from other jurisdictions.
Thank you so much.
I'll have a short one. I think we need to start seeing more connectivity from traditional industries into Web3 and vice versa. Right? We cannot continue to operate as if Web3 is over here and then the rest of the world is over here. Right? It cannot happen that way. And Hong Kong needs to continue to develop various different infrastructure and rails that connects the two. The Hong Kong Monetary Authority already mentioned that they are going to be coming up with a stablecoin regulation or consultation pretty soon. I think that's going to be one very clear rail, especially if they start enabling Hong Kong dollar stablecoins to be part of the ecosystem. I think that's going to enable a lot of real-world applications, whether it's payments or remittances, tokenized assets being on RWAs. If you start to have that rail enabled in Hong Kong as well, that will actually bring a lot more interest in Hong Kong, especially given the position around financial services that we have. So that's what I would like to see.
Thank you so much, Dan. How about?
Yeah, I really have a quick one. So actually, because Sandbox is already developing quite a lot of use cases in Hong Kong. So coming up, we're also looking forward to see any utility for Sand tokens to using maybe some local event in Hong Kong. But actually, there's an event they really consider to use Sand token to purchase some soft drink or hot dogs coming up. So this is what we are looking forward for to have some real utility into this local market.
Thank you so much, Efren, for sharing. I also want to echo with Xian's comments. And Cyberport is also working on various projects and initiatives to really connect Web2 to Web3 and help on the transition as well. Yeah, thanks everyone today for the conversation. Really insightful, and thanks a lot for listening as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel.
Would everyone please take a group photo before returning to your seats? And thank you so much, Rachel, for being our moderator. Really appreciated that. All right, so after the segment, I know we all know what's coming up. A lot of exciting stuff coming up. Now just make sure we get that perfect picture. It was a true pleasure to have such fruitful discussion from our guests. Thank you so much for sharing with us. All right, let's just take one more for security measures. Make sure we have that perfect picture. Thank you so much. Let's give them a big round of applause again. Thank you very much, all.